Coffee Hour. Welcome to Coffee with our morning host. We broadcast a host of programs like current topics, newspaper headlines, and music on Radio Sri Lanka. Tune in every weekday from 7 to 8 a.m.
Coffee Hour, and we got with us Dr. Sudath Chandra, Innovation Leader of the Pereira Plant-Made Fertilizers. And today we're going to talk about the importance of fertilizers and also especially about organic fertilizers. A very good morning to you, Doctor. And we're glad to have you here this morning on the Coffee Hour. And first and foremost, in a layman's point of view, to the listeners out there, I would like to get a better idea of what exactly are fertilizers. We know the term, we've heard the term, we know people using it, but what is it, and are there any types of fertilizers? Can we please get a, elaborate explanation on that in a layman's point of view?
Yeah. Fertilizer is a substance applied to soil or plants to provide essential nutrients for their growth. There are two main types of fertilizers, organic and synthetic. Organic fertilizers are derived from natural sources such as animal manure, compost and plant material. Synthetic fertilizers are chemically produced and contain specific nutrients in concentrated forms. So these are the main two fertilizers.
That's organic and synthetic fertilizers. So we will be touching on the benefits and also the difference between the fertilizers as well, because that's important. We understand that, anything organic is a little difficult to produce or keep, or maybe they say it's much more expensive, but there are more benefits.
Yes.
So
definitely.
Let's touch on the difference between organic and synthetic fertilizers and the advantages of sticking to a certain type of fertilizer.
Yeah. So fertilizers provide several benefits, including enhanced plant growth, increased crop yields, and improved nutrient content and faster maturity. Both organic and synthetic fertilizers can provide these benefits, but there are differences. Organic fertilizers improve soil structure and promote microbial activity, while synthetic fertilizers offer precise nutrient control and faster nutrient availability.
So is there any, harm to the crop or the soil when you use synthetic fertilizers?
Synthetic fertilizer, not, when it comes to pesticide, of course, yes. So that will damage the microbial communities in the soil, but that is more essential than the nutrients, because the world actually started many millions of years ago. The microbial community look after the soil. So later on, man with his knowledge and innovation and kind of stuff invented these kind of fertilizers, and they intervened into bacterial or the microbial communities. So there is a problem as well.
There is a problem as well.
That is what, widely discussed all over the world.
It certainly is, because it's quite a topic these days, isn't it? And we speak about going green, protecting the planet, and then again we see innovation doing otherwise, isn't it?
Of course.
In this sense, today it's about fertilizers and about, we've been talking about the benefits of fertilizers and what exactly a fertilizer does. So that's in a layman's point of view. So doctor, tell us also about the drawbacks of using organic fertilizer. Why do people always go for synthetic fertilizers? Why not organic?
Yeah, actually, although organic fertilizers have many benefits, they also have some drawbacks. they also have lower nutrient concentrations compared to synthetic fertilizer, requiring larger quantities for the same effect. Organic fertilizers can also release nutrients slowly, which may lead to delayed availability for plants. Additionally, they can be bulky, more challenging to transport, and may carry the risk of introducing pests or diseases. These are the drawbacks.
When shifting to organic fertilizers. Yeah. But why organic?
Organic is actually for the betterment of the animal and human life. So when we talk about the soil, it has microbes to look after, and they do their duties. So their duty is to, supply the nutrients through the roots to the plants. So that will naturally happen. And we don't need to, take care of it, or we don't need to intervene them. So when it comes to the commercial crops, like the population is, growing day by day. And so then the people think about, how to get more yield out of a limited land. So in that sense, people shifted into chemical fertilizers. But the organic, in the sense, are now developing. We are doing more research on how to get more nutrients on the limited amount of using limited amount of fertilizer. And so that is gone, and people should understand. So the first priority should be given to your health. So organic is very important.
Exactly. It's not about getting the produce fast,
yes,
but it's about protecting your own health. But Doctor, when the country was trying to shift to completely organic fertilizers, we faced a lot of issues, and we faced different challenges from farmers, then from people who buy produce. So can you explain how we should adapt to this, to our listeners, in a layman's point of view? I mean, you've already explained the benefit and why organic, because eventually, at the end of the day, it's about protecting our own health. But I think it's better if you could give us an explanation as to how we could adapt to organic fertilizers when there are a few drawbacks as well.
Yeah, actually, so now in that sense, when the advancement of the technology, likewise the same way the scientists are, developing chemical fertilizers, and I think priority should be given to more and more research should be done on how to improve the qualities and the nutrient factors of the organic fertilizers. And so that is, I think, a continuing process. We are also doing as a company. And so then that way we should educate the farmers to, how to use organic fertilizers to fertile their lands. So that sends the farmers, at the very beginning of this shift from organic, the chemicals to organic fertilizers. So people had no knowledge about it because of 30, 40 years back, their parents and their grandparents had that knowledge. They died, and the later generation, was always on the synthetic fertilizer. So that was the difficulty of, communicating, and we should have had a, kind of a communication, and, should have a better understanding about what we are going to do. And, the farmers didn't know what was happening. So the politicians and the people, those who are taking political advantages, took that and, promote farmers to, come forward and fight against yourself. To my knowledge, I think, fight against your health. You ask synthetic fertilizer, not organic. Because the people need money at the end of the day. Exactly. They want to sell their crops and all. So we should understand.
So is there anything kind of done to educate the farmers or awareness campaigns being organized?
I think there are a lot of programs doing, provincial wise, and, we also have participated for that kind of conferences and try to educate the people, normal farmers. To my knowledge, so the farmers in eastern and northern provinces was always toward the organic fertilizer. It's very easy to, make them convinced, except very few, but they were doing their, so there's in the eastern provinces, when you get, Muslims and Tamil farmers, they were always towards these concepts. They accept it. But when it comes to some areas like, Polonnaru and Anuradhapura, the farmers always after the chemical fertilizers. When you see over the radio or the TV or whatever, people are fighting. People are asking more chemical fertilizer without not knowing the reasons.
Yes, we can't blame the farmers completely. Because they also should be, I think, given a proper awareness on this. Definitely. And of course, nobody wants to harm another person's health. But sometimes money plays a massive role, isn't it? Definitely. And some of them are left speechless when it comes to that, because all of them at the end of the day, as you mentioned, they need to sell their crops and they need to earn their money fast.
They will look after their families.
Exactly. So I think it's a very slow process, but we're getting there. And this program is also another form of spreading awareness as to how important it is to protect our health first, because that's important, that's vital.
Yes.
And end of the day, we earn a living to protect ourselves, to eat and drink, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how do farmers choose the right fertilizers for their crops or plants, Doctor?
Farmers consider several factors when selecting fertilizers for their crops and plants. They assess the nutrient levels and consider the soil type and fertility. They also consider the crop's growth stage, climate conditions, and any specific nutritional needs. Based on these factors, farmers can choose fertilizers that provide the required nutrients in the appropriate forms. And
is there someone to guide them? Let's say like they are into a certain kind of, farming, like, in terms of the crops they do. Yeah. So is there anyone to guide them as to what type of fertilizer they should go for?
There are agricultural officers all around the country. They are guiding. But to my knowledge, I think most of them are, had an education during this chemical period. So they are very much towards that side.
Okay.
So there are traditional farming communities. Then we also have gentlemen or few people, and we take them around the country to teach the farmers this is how you should start. This is the period. There are certain periods, because we are dealing with the sun and the moon at the end of the day. So you have only 28 to few days for a full moon to come, and go around. So that cycle is there. The sun is there. So these traditional farmers are reintroducing and actually reteaching the farming communities. This is what our ancestors practiced. So this is how I do. Look at my crops. And this is how get the results. So you don't need to go really after the chemical fertilizers. So there are certain factors that you should use chemical fertilizers in kind of situations. But in some case they may ask whether we can use organic fertilizers plus chemical fertilizers. Chemical in the sense, like in Sinhala, yadeka no rata rata samaga pahimik neta, the what do you call this? The iron has to be, reddened. If you need to, join both of them together. Yes. So, like the same way, when you destroy the microbial community in the soil and putting chemicals into, to the same act, so then you don't have both.
Yeah, you have no benefits at all.
No benefits at all.
It's like neither this nor that.
Education should be there.
Exactly.
But that is not enough. So some farmers...
It's a practice they've been following for years and years. So it's hard for us to kind of, let them know that what you've been doing is wrong all these years.
Yes, definitely. Because so it is actually our ancestors, they died with most of the techniques because they were they faced very difficult situation when the chemical fertilizer introduced. Their sons and daughters didn't listen to them. Still that is there. I have a lot of friends, older farmers, and they also said the same story. My sons and daughters, they don't listen to me. So what should I do? I just I just look at my crops and I know that they are feeding the public poison.
It's a very sad situation because we are introduced to a lot of new things and then we don't know which one to choose now.
Yeah, actually, most of these farmers grow a separate portion to be used for their families. That's a true story. And for the commercial purposes, they use chemical fertilizers and, try to get more yield and sell it at the end of the day. So the general public get the poison and their family.
They don't.
They don't.
So which means they are already aware. It's just that it's about...
but they'll have to, fight with their day-to-day.
Exactly. I mean, this is a very crazy situation if we take it into really deep thinking.
Yes.
Because it's about, at the end of the day, producing more yield, as you mentioned, and making more money. But they know what they're doing is wrong. So that's intentional damage.
Yeah, definitely. So for that kind of people, that's what I said in the beginning, we have manufactured a lot of organic fertilizers, like, activated biochar and the compost with, microbes, activated compost and, liquid fertilizers with more nutrient NPK values, kind of stuff. So we are also helping them and we are showing them and try to bring down the prices to, match with the synthetic fertilizers.
Listening to Radio Sri Lanka, and we've been talking a lot about fertilizers. It's a very interesting topic, and it's also a very sad situation at the same time when we see people adopting to chemical fertilizers, and we've been used to it over the years, doctors. It's not something new, but organic fertilizers have been there centuries ago, so it's even older, but it's just that it's very hard to convince people to shift once they're used to something. So are there any rules regarding fertilizers? Any rules per se?
Rules regarding fertilizers can vary between countries and regions. Generally, regulations cover aspects such as labeling requirements, nutrient content specifications, safety guidelines, and environmental considerations. So these rules aim to ensure the quality, efficacy, and safe use of fertilizers. So penalties of violating fertilizer rules also depend on the specific regulations in place. Typically, violations may result in fines, legal actions, or restrictions on fertilizer usage.
It changes from country to country, isn't it?
It changes from country to country when it comes to Sri Lanka, a different story in some areas. The severity of penalties may vary based on the nature and extent of the violations, with the intention of discouraging and non-compliance, protecting the environments. So the protecting the environments is the most important factor.
Exactly. So we've come to the final few minutes of the show as well, Doctor. So what would your message be to the general public in terms of, now we spoke a lot about the drawbacks, advantages, benefits of fertilizers, of organic fertilizers, and about how important it is to spread awareness in terms of the importance of using organic fertilizers. And Doctor, you mentioned that now, since in the drawbacks you mentioned that there are, the drawbacks would be it's bulky, you need to use more quantity than, the synthetic fertilizers when it comes to organic fertilizers, and it could take time.
Yeah.
But there are also solutions for that, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
So what would your message be to the general public?
As a society, it is essential to recognize the critical role of fertilizers in ensuring food security and supporting agricultural productivity. However, it is equally important to use fertilizers responsibly and sustainably. So, by adopting best practices such as proper fertilizer application techniques, following regulations, and considering environmental impacts, we can safeguard our ecosystem, protect water resources, and promote sustainable agriculture for the future generations. So that was my message.
And I think it's a good message, and we need to think it well, because end of the day, it's about us, and it's about what we consume. We spend money and buy. Someone earns, and then we spend on poison.
Yeah.
So that's very, it's a point we need to actually ponder, and we need to also educate the general public. And if you've been listening to this and you got the message, and I think it's high time you spread the word. Yeah. So thank you very much, Doctor, for being a part of the show. It was a real pleasure having you with us. Yes. And we've been in conversation with Dr. Sudath Chandra, Innovation Leader of the Pereira Plant-Made Fertilizers. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The Coffee Hour. Welcome to Coffee with our morning host. We broadcast a host of programs like Current Topics, Newspaper Headlines, and Music on Radio Sri Lanka. Tune in every weekday from 7 to 8 a.m.